Welcome, friends. This is Brian Hudson, and welcome to another edition of Conversations in Focus here on Vision Stream Network. This program concept is quite simple. I want to bring to you people I believe are making an impact in our community, in our world, people who are doing great work, whether it's with young people or adults or community. And we have here today, I have with me a man who is doing a phenomenal work, a substantial work in the lives of young people. And I'm talking about none other than Dr. Robert Townsend. Dr. Townsend, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're here to talk about a program he founded and he and his wife lead called the Performing Arts Conservatory. Now, what is that? Well, you're going to find out, because performing arts is in the realm of arts. Now, if you watch my program, you know I'm about all things arts. Performing arts, media arts, visual arts. And I feel that part of my role with this platform is to empower families and adults and the youth especially to discover their God-given gifts. And performing arts in this program will be one way we'll talk about how to maximize the gifting that God has put on the inside of young people. We know that in the Bible, people like David was a performing artist.
Yes.
He was a musician. He was, of course, a prophet, a priest, a king, a genius, really. And so the spirit of performing arts is all throughout Scripture. There's no denying that. And so my guest today is going to talk to us about the power of performing arts. Talk to us about how to help young people discover their grace and gifting from God. So first of all, Dr. Townsend, what is the Performing Arts Conservatory?
Well, thanks again for having me on the program. The Performing Arts Conservatory is an organization we founded back in 2010, and we seek to work with youth, primarily grades 6 through 12, in the areas of dance, drama, and music. Right now, we are meeting on Sundays at the Indie Dance Academy. It allows for the right type of floor and mirrors for the dancers, so that was perfect. But also, these past 2 years, we've been able to have everybody together. So we have a vocal ensemble, we have an instrumental ensemble, and the dance ensemble. The drama that is done is done depending on the pieces that we perform. For example, this year at our showcase coming up, the ladies are doing a piece, Let the Church Roll On. It's a spiritual satire by Jester Harrison's arrangement. And it's pretty funny. So they'll be doing some, of course, they'll have their church dresses and the gloves and the purses and the fans, and they'll be play acting through the song. So we do things of that nature. One of the things that concerned me, I was a public school teacher in this system, Warren Township, Washington Township, and Indianapolis Public Schools. And I'm very concerned about the instruction that's going on. There's some really great instruction going on, and many teachers are struggling, particularly in those performing arts areas. But there are some buildings. The year that I left, they were and went to the university level to teach. There were 10 buildings that did not have music teachers, and that's just the elementary buildings. And they weren't really sure what they were going to do the next year. So the instruction at Performing Arts Conservatory is very focused on training them to be professionals in the area that they choose. Now, we are not, we know that not all of them will become famous dancers, famous musicians, famous singers, famous theater people, but that whole performing arts thing in their life does something for them to make their life more whole, as we know from a lot of research and experience.
Yes, we have confirmed that as well in our media arts program. The concept, the data just shows that when we empower young people in arts, then their self-esteem goes up.
Absolutely.
You know, their confidence in the academics goes up because one feels better about oneself and discovers one has grace and gifting and they're special. So where they struggle it feels less of a struggle because they're good at something else, right? And that's important. Now, you say your young people are into song, they're singing, they're musicians, they're acting, and doing dance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's a well-rounded performing arts program. Now, are you a musician?
I am, yeah. Keyboard is my major instrument, but of course, I went to school to be a music teacher, so I had to learn them all.
Yes.
All the instruments, and of course, voice. I am not a dancer, never have been, and if you saw me, you would be quite embarrassed. I mess with the dancers all the time when I walk into their rehearsal, and the dance instructor is working with them, and I'll say, "Hey, listen, if that's a problem, let me know, because I can jump right in and take that person's spot." And the kids will say, "No, that's okay. That's okay." No. So, it's not my gifting, but it's amazing when you see
Little
how
reverse
gifted they are.
psychology there, right?
Absolutely.
I'm looking here at the mission statement on the website, and it says, "We provide an environment where students will grow intellectually, focusing on their gifts and talents in music, dance, and drama, while training them to be future leaders." Interesting. What is the aspect of leadership as relates to performing arts?
Well, that's interesting. We have a board member now that is a major IT person in General Motors. So sits at the table to make decisions as it relates to human resources and IT in General Motors. And she was sharing with us, she's a flautist, played flute for years, and when this position became, her first position came open, her first job, she was working for General Motors, and then there was a point where she was promoted to a new position, and there were, I think, 2 or 3 finalists. She was one of the finalists and received the position, and the person that made the decision said to her, "We gave the position to you because you played an instrument," which is real interesting.
It is interesting.
And the others did not. And his take on that was, "I just find that musicians or former musicians very collaborative. They work well together. They are very flexible. They are fine with playing HH as opposed to some other areas that are a little more rigid." And so that was a great thing. So coming from that just goes right along with the research of what happens when you participate in performing arts. Now, I have sense enough to know and not negate, it's very similar to sports. One of the things, though, one of the reasons why we started TPAC, as the kids call it, was because there are so many sports programs out there. It's amazing. My daughter who's also a violinist and swam and played volleyball. There were so many opportunities for her, but not as much for her playing violin. There are a few possibilities, but not as much as she could do those sports. And so not all children are outstanding in sports. I tell them all the time that I should have been on the team with Michael Jordan. The problem was I'm not good. I love basketball. I'm just not great at it. And so my gifting was in the area of music. And we have children that have lots of gifts in the area of performing arts. And so we just wanted to provide that opportunity for them.
That's outstanding. The stats we know about professional sports, we're aware of how few people actually become
Absolutely.
professional athletes.
Absolutely.
And we know that among those, how short the career actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And, 10, 12 years, 8 years average, 6 for football, I believe.
Yeah.
But yet, arts, performing arts, you have skills for a lifetime. What is the genesis of the Performing Arts Conservatory? What's the story behind your founding?
Yeah, not to spook anybody out, but at the age of 14, I am a Christian, first of all, and at the age of 14, God gave me a vision of this performing arts school, and so it's my journey's been very interesting because I figured I would help him with this vision. And so, I became a teacher and was teaching in public school and private school situations. And I said, there it is, God. Okay, I'm doing it. And, it's very clear that's not what I told you to do. That's great because you get the experience and the opportunity to sort of practice on someone else's dime, so to speak, and to hone up on your skills. So I grew in the area of being able to teach in the performing arts world. But that's really how this came about, that it's a vision that I received at a young age and then finally said yes to it. And we began building it in 2010. So it eventually will be a school in the performing arts with the performing arts focus. One of the reasons that we started this was in my years of teaching, I noticed that some students learn differently. We've got a couple of students now that are in the Performing Arts Conservatory that struggled for a while with certain subjects, and then helping them to focus on, okay, the same way that you learn those steps, the same way that you learn that piece, that's the same way that you can learn how to do math. It's your learning style, and so what we will do in this school is teachers will have training on how to deal with different types of learners. Not that they're not doing it in the public schools or in other private schools, but this one has a focus on the performing arts. So the performing arts will be the driver, not the sprinkles on the cake, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this now, going back to being a musician, I'm always curious to ask artists this question. What did God do in your life to motivate you in music?
Wow. Okay. Growing up in Michigan, that was where I grew up, very interesting type of situation. There was a lot of turmoil because I grew up in the 60s, so there's a lot of things that were going on, racial situations, socioeconomic situations. And we weren't hit as bad. Remember, I will say I grew up in Flint, Michigan, where the dream of every young boy was to get out of high school or not get out of high school, go work for General Motors, Ford, or Chrysler. That's a Chevrolet. Those were the things that we knew we would do, and many of my classmates didn't study for that reason, didn't really excel in education because they figured they would either play basketball for the NBA, play football for the NFL, or play baseball, or work for General Motors, Chrysler, Ford. About the 9th grade, they began shutting down, moving to other countries, and the plants closed. We personally were not hit because my father was a police officer and my mother did mainly worked in the home, but also worked as a church secretary. So we weren't hit like many of us, but there's a movie that came out, documentary Roger and Me, by Mike, I forget his name, but it was the story of that going on in Flint, and I just remember seeing a scene where kids were coming home from school, or he was driving through the neighborhood, and everybody, the clothing, the furniture was out on front lawn. They had been put out of their house, been foreclosed on because they work for General Motors and now don't have anything. And I can say we lived through that, walking home with friends, classmates, and the parents are there, get in the car, and then you never see them again. So the music, seeing all of this, along with just the typical drama of growing up as a teenager, growing up as a African-American male in the United States, the music world for me was a place to go to get it back together, so to speak. I poured myself definitely into that, and I'm the gift that God gave me. I've been playing since I was 5 years old, so that was one of the things that helped me to be able to get through some of the things that I was seeing that were going on in the world.
Now, Dr. Townsend, I see on the website as well, looking at core values. And, I look at websites, I see in it, to me, information that you post about your organization obviously is the core that motivates all you do. And I'm reading here, it says, we will educate students by incorporating good citizenship values in the curriculum. It also says we will utilize an intense, disciplined, instructional philosophy experience. Now, you don't seem very intense to me. But I suspect students see
You
a different
should ask
side.
the students,
I was going
yeah.
to say, I suspect they see a different side of you. But talk
Yeah.
about that meaning, the intense, disciplined, instructional philosophy.
Well, I'll talk from our motto. The every day, every session we have what's called family time at the end, where all three come together, the different areas of performing arts, and we come together, and there's announcements and things, and we always end the day with saying our motto: God has given me a great gift, and I will be thankful by learning. So I push that. We all three of us push that. Yes, you're gifted, but you ain't all that, basically. And that sometimes we have to remind, particularly performers, that it's a gift from God, and He can take it away. He can let you have it. It can grow. It can stay the same. But your job is to, as best as possible and as far as possible, go as far as you can with your gift through learning. And so we push that in our sessions.
And I'm sure that your example and your team's example, the intensity is not emotional as much as it is intellectual, expectation-wise.
Absolutely.
We've learned that when you expect a lot from young people, you get more if you expect more.
Well, one of the things that the three of us push is the repertoire that we do is it's difficult. It's professional repertoire. What I found from even my years of teaching, and sometimes we'll get criticized by other teachers about the repertoire, but what I found with is exactly what you said. If you don't tell them they're not supposed to be able to do this, they can do it. They will rise to it. When I began teaching in Flint, Michigan, we went through a training. I don't know if they do it much anymore. It's called TESSA, Teacher Expectation, Student Achievement. And what you expect, that's what they will rise to achieve. So we expect excellence in every way, even with the 2-hour sessions once a week that we have. We expect the excellence, and they push and strive for that. It's not always perfect, obviously, because we're not perfect beings, but it's perfect in that they have done their very best.
Yes, so important. Looking here again at the values, core values, another one here says, we will develop a strong health and wellness program to encourage the students to have successful lives. How does wealth and wellness factor in to performing arts?
A lot of those core principles are things that are down the road as far as when the school opens, but even in our sessions, our right now the after-school program, so to speak, after-school meaning it's not during school hours, we still talk about and have sessions about how you are taking care of yourself as particularly the dancers.
I was going to say,
particularly the
I
dancers.
watched the performance, and young man had to be in shape. That was intense.
So talking about, and then also just about healthy living, that substances, drugs, alcohol, do impede your performance. I remember a show as a teenager, and this amazing young lady who could sing so well, and she was, during the rehearsals, it was amazing, it was awesome. The night of the show, she did the whole song in one key, and the band was in another key. She had smoked weed. She thought she was doing an amazing job, but all of that affects you, and that's what we try to teach them.
Yeah.
Those choices.
Brain development is underestimated in terms
Absolutely.
of impact on growth, because we know the brain is a physical organ. There's synapses there, and it's possible to be high and think your brain is doing one thing and you're doing something else. And so, but the wellness piece I also would assume comes in with the breathing.
Absolutely.
As people are playing instruments and how
Warming
you sing,
up,
and warming up, and diaphragm,
staying
all that.
hydrated.
Yes,
Yep,
sir.
all those things.
It's
Getting rest.
Yes,
Yep.
it is. So important. Next question is, how do you motivate young people to pursue performing arts?
Motivation is a very interesting theory. As an educator, there's so many different theories that are involved in motivation and student engagement and those types of things. We don't seem to have that problem yet at the Performing Arts Conservatory. Students who come want to participate. The motivation has come from those expectations. These are the things that we expect. And there are some students who decide, and parents who decide, maybe not, we're not there, because there's a fee. It's not ridiculous, but there's a fee, and parents will decide, they're not taking it seriously, we're not going to have them be a part. But we haven't had that problem, but in my experience of teaching, it can be difficult to motivate and educate. And there's two things that I do personally, and that is I model, demonstrate what that means to be active and engaged, and then I inspect what I expect. So if I give them an instruction, most of the time I work with the singers now, and if I give the young ladies an instruction and then we go back through it and it's not there, I will then go to another level of, okay, so what did you miss from my statement? Because you didn't just do what I said we needed to do. And typically they're playing around, they're not being serious, and then they get focused. So I don't know if it's the dad in me, I don't know if it's the years of teaching, but I typically don't have that problem. And I know our instrumental and dance teacher doesn't seem to have that problem. The whole thing about motivation and engagement is we do work with the students. At the end of the year, we have a session with some of the seniors from all the areas, the directors of each area, our executive director, Bridget Townsend, my wife, and we come to a place, usually it's a restaurant, and we talk about how the final show went, the showcase went, talk about things we could do better, and then we began to talk about what we will do for the next season, what's our focus. And so there being a part of planning, they sort of take on this ownership, and so that has also been helpful with engagement.
I would think, too, that once they come to the conservatory, and among others of similar passion, of course, iron sharpens iron, the Bible says that.
Absolutely.
That's also, I'm sure, a factor. My theory on motivation kind of goes with the idea that schools should expose young people to a number of experiences, whether it's performing arts, media arts, science, technology. We never know what will spark an interest in a young person. I remember when I was at Arlington High School way back in the 70s, they took us on a bus to Ball State University, to the architecture school, and I saw this multimedia presentation, slide projectors synchronized with sound. I thought, whoa, never seen that before. And that experience sparked in me a motivation for media arts. I had done visual arts all my life, and so my point is, we never know what experiences that will spark in that child an interest.
In the 5 years that we have been running this program, we've been to see the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, we've been to see the Indianapolis Symphony, we have been to choral performances, we have been to dramatic performances. This past season, we did do a trip to Bellarmine University down in Kentucky, and they performed there with performers there, professors there. We participated with the Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis on their concert in February, and we'll plan to do that again in 2019. And so the students were sitting, in an orchestra. They were sitting side by side with professional players. The singers were singing with singers, and the dance ensemble performed one of the pieces with the orchestra and the choir. That's one of the things that that makes us a little different, that I probably should have talked about earlier than some other programs. We're not a dance troupe. We're not a symphony orchestra. We're not a choir. These ensembles perform together. They do some repertoire by themselves, obviously, but the goal that I'm trying to teach them, and we are trying to teach them, is how to work together. And so we do performances of pieces that include all of the genres of music and dance and drama. And this is one of the things that, because one of the students asked me earlier on, why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? And I was trying to help them understand, and I had a former board member come in who was a professional musician in one of the shows in New York. And he decided to change the tempo. And at the end of the show told him, you don't have to continue anymore. You don't have to come back. Was fired. When you make decisions like that, it affected the lines, it affected the singers on the stage, it affected the dancers, it affects everything. So learning how to work with other performing arts ensembles even is important. And so that's why we have pieces that include all of them to try to help them understand that.
That's important, because diversity is always important inside of a profession or a discipline. For example, my training in media arts, we learned photography and typography. We did visual art, we did painting, we did color theory, realizing that in the real world, you can't just have photography only.
Right.
You can't just draw only.
Right.
And I can imagine also in performing arts, having at least some knowledge of these different disciplines in the various fields, again, helps one become more valuable and more useful.
Yes.
In the areas. Next question I want to ask you is, what is your view of the state of the arts in our schools here in Indianapolis, Marion County?
Well, I can even say the state of arts are in trouble, not only in our area in the United States. It is a mindset of something that I alluded to earlier, that the performing arts and arts in general are the sprinkles on the cake. And when you are seen as sprinkles, you might need them, you might not need them. It's not really necessary. And so what has to occur, in my opinion, is that the leaders in the world of education need to understand that we aren't just building people who can count and put the correct doses of medication together, which is, I'm totally not against STEM, but it concerns me that there's such a focus on STEM that it leaves out everything else, that it makes one a very dry person. And then what I have seen, even in the work world, are people who never participated in arts that have difficulty in a workplace, just those, as the business world says, those soft skills, those people skills. I work with a colleague now who's very, very brilliant in those numbers, but is losing staff almost monthly. People just do not want to work with them because of the lack of people skills. And I just wonder if the fact that person did not have arts in their life had an effect on it. Of course, there's research and there are theories that doesn't make a difference, but there's more research that says that it does. It makes a more well-rounded person, a more impactful citizen.
So true. I remember in my master's program in education, which I have a master's degree in education, in studying educational systems, we realized that our system today is somewhat based on the agricultural
Yes.
and industrial model, where we're preparing students to run machines and drive tractors and such, and we're well past that era now. We're in information age now, and we should be preparing students with a more liberal arts approach to develop their minds, to solve problems, to see solutions. And the one-size-fits-all model is just not helping our young people.
No.
And then when we decide that we got to, they have to pass the test, and passing tests is important. We believe in testing and assessments. But the high-stakes testing and teaching to the test leaves no room for creative expression.
No.
I remember coming up in my high school, Arlington High School, we had a vibrant arts program. I won a county-wide award in arts, in visual art. Poster contest I won. Black kid from the hood.
Right.
I beat out the kids in Carmel and everybody else because I had Mr. Lentz, these great teachers who were passionate about art. And they made us understand it's a part of your life and it's as important as the academics. And I sense, Dr. Townsend, you have a similar passion where you want to help young people understand that the arts is not something, it's not sprinkles on top, right? It's fundamental to your character. Is that correct?
Fundamental, absolutely.
This has been a very interesting conversation. Hope you've been interested to hear what the Performing Arts Conservatory is doing, to hear the heart of the founder, Dr. Townsend. Let's talk now, if we could, about what's coming up in the Performing Arts Conservatory. What events are planned, what major events are coming up, what should we be aware of and looking out for, and what can we support?
So we have, each year we do what's called our showcase in June. And our showcase is coming up June 10th. It's the second Sunday in June, and it's at 4 p.m. This year it's going to be at Light of the World Christian Church. You'll be able to see all of the ensembles together. It's also our 5th year of this program working together, and so we have former members coming back to participate with the current members, and it's going to be sort of like a reunion. It's really neat. They're all excited. You will see a number of different types of genres. We're going to do works from all 5 years. So there will be classical pieces, there'll be pop pieces, there's going to be gospel pieces performed, and it's going to be really an amazing show. It's the theme this year is the TPAC journey, and so going through those 5 years, and we're really excited about it. Would love to see all of you there. Tickets can be purchased if you go to our website. They can be purchased through Evite. You also can see the information on the Facebook. You have to type in the Performing Arts Conservatory, and all the information is there. Coming up again, June 10th. We'd love to see you guys there.
During the course of our talk, I have been showing the website on the screen below us. You've seen that the whole time we've been conversing. Please visit the website, learn more about the conservatory, purchase tickets to the event coming up, and just be motivated to encourage your young people to see if God's put in them a seed of performing arts, grace, and gifting. And as parents, our responsibility is to help young people connect with God that way. So I encourage you to help them that way. Dr. Townsend, we're at the end of our time together. I'd like to always ask guests before we close out, you want to share anything with our viewers and listeners as we close out this conversation?
Well, Brian, thank you so much for having me on this time to talk with you about it. I would just want to encourage parents, as Brian has said before, to encourage your students to participate in everything. They need an opportunity to be exposed to things. My pastor always says, how can you expose people? How can people make a decision if they've never been exposed? Of course, he's talking about being exposed to Christ and deciding to live that life. But that's in anything. In order for you to make a decision, you have to be exposed to what it is, or else how would you know? So I would love, again, to encourage you that wherever you are, wherever you may be, to encourage your students to get engaged, to try some things, to find out what is their gifting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Dr. Robert Townsend, the founder of the Performing Arts Conservatory in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I trust you were as excited as I am to have heard about this program, to learn more about it, what young people are doing in maximizing their God-given gifts. And I encourage you, again, to visit the website there on the screen, and you want to learn more and support this organization. It's a nonprofit, so they take donations. Is that correct, Dr.?
Absolutely.
Okay. You can send your money and help them help young people. And I'm sure they can use more help, so please consider making an investment into this tremendous resource for young people in our community. Thank you for watching Conversations in Focus here on the Vision Stream Network. And just stay tuned for future programs with great guests. Until then, God bless. Dr. Townsend, that one thing schools really can do and should do is expose students to a number of experiences. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Your phone.
My phone, man. Goodness gracious. Guilty, man. Turn your phone off, Doc. Your phone off.
Yeah.